I'd like to welcome you back for another episode of the Encouragement Conquers All podcast. And I can tell you, we've had guests galore. We've had NBA stars, trainers, athletes. We've had young men and women who are impacting lives. We've had, great faith examples who show us how to encourage others. But I can tell you, the guests we've have, there is nobody like this young lady. And I can tell you, it is my pleasure. This young lady, she's been on Saturday Night Live, and Men in Black, the movie Seinfeld, Forrest Gump. She actually came, I couldn't believe it. I mean, she put a movie together with her family, right? That she basically produced and directed with her family, and has captivated audiences with this movie and had a wide release through AMC and Regal Cinema. And she did it in 16 days. The film's called Shelter and Solitude. It's unbelievable. You got to check it out. And I can tell you right now, Siobhan, I can't believe that Siobhan is on our show. Siobhan Fallon Hogan, who actually, her brother-in-law is a friend of mine. And I didn't know how tight they were, but he's one of my favorite people. She might be one of my second favorite people. That guy's one of my favorite people in the world, Marty Hogan. So Siobhan, come on. I want to get your fire on here, Siobhan. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I so appreciate it, Justin. It's like 6 degrees of separation here. My brother-in-law Marty's down in Savannah. No, he's been telling me forever, like, that you came down to St. Benedictine and you were like amazing with the kids. And then I was out in Casanova, where I'm from, and I met a whole group of your kids, like 15 of them. They're like, we got talking. They're like, let's pray. And I was like, this is amazing what you guys are doing.
No, but when we got on the call, I just had to have you on this podcast because I just want to say, first of all, you encouraged me when we just spent a little bit of time together, because you are just you. And I think that's what people struggle with in life, being themselves. How do you cope with being you? How do you do that?
Listen, I'm one of 5. Like I said, from Casanova, outside of Syracuse. My parents were awesome Catholic, but there was no ego. You know what I mean? So, I got on Saturday Night Live. I called my father up. My mother's like, he's playing golf. And I was like, oh, so it was like 6 o'clock in the morning when I found out. I was like, I called the golf course in Kansas. They're like, could you get him off the course? They're like, he's on the 17th hole. I go, get him. This is big. I think they thought I was hurt or something. And they get him in, and I go, Dad, I got on Saturday Night Live. And he goes, that's dynamite. He goes, guys, my daughter got on Saturday Night Live. Honey, I'm proud of you. All right, I got to go finish the game. Like, so it was like, but we were taught as kids, I mean, there's so many more important jobs than what I'm doing. For example, what you're doing. And entertainment's awesome. And I do think the culture can change if we get a lot of really, beautiful work out there with light. But, so it's just a weird thing in my business that people just kind of idolize people on TV show and movies. But I never went there because I knew that was not the real deal.
Yeah. Like, did you desire at a young age to be in film and to do movies, like as a young person? I don't know. Or is this something that like, for me, I just kind of rolled into all these series. It just happened. I just desired to impact lives. How did it work? What's your story?
Well, I was in 3rd grade and there was an audition in my class for The Proud Train. And I wanted to be the conductor, but they wouldn't let me because I was a girl. And anyway, so I became the wheel of the caboose instead. And I got my first bad reviews from the 6th graders who wrote a letter to our class and said, why was the caboose wheel going so much faster than the rest of the wheels? The train would have derailed. So I had a tough skin, so I could take bad reviews. So I knew I could make it in this business. 8 years old. No, I'm kidding. But in my family, I'm Irish, so we really valued storytelling.
Yes.
And like my parents were great because I was a terrible student. Matter of fact, I wrote a little children's book about that called Susie the Scene, but that's a whole other story. But most people, and then I moved down to New York City and raised my kids. I have 3 kids down here, and academics are so valued in your grades and what school you go to. And I was like a bozo in school. I was a terrible student. But I remember one time I came home from college and I had a D in astronomy. And my father said, oh, come on, Siobhan, you did pretty good. He goes, let me show you this pie. 65% of it's left. That's a lot of pie that's left. Don't feel so badly about it, right? So we were more into like, who was the funniest, telling stories, and being a charitable, good person, and spreading the word. And I think one of the things I always tell kids when I talk to about being in film or being in theater, TV, is there's no place for envy. There's so many people like, I can't believe that she got that part and I didn't get it, or
Yeah.
you got it and I didn't get it. It's just ridiculous. It's just a waste of time. And I also tell kids that my faith, because writing the two movies, how they came about was,
Yeah,
I
you wrote two of your own movies and just produced them and directed them, right?
yes. So
Unbelievable.
I was lucky. I went to Catholic University, got my master's in acting, went to New York City. I was a disaster. I like worked in a law firm because I was such a bad waitress. And I'm still good friends with the guys in the law firm today. They're all Jewish. I'm Catholic. I was like, so well, it's your birthday. You want to order lobster? And they're like, well, you don't eat shellfish. I was like, oh. So anyway, so I had no skills. I'm in New York. I'm like desperate. So I would just go to mass and be like, come on, God, I got nothing else. I have no skills. You got to help me out here. So I started out in theater. I did Shakespeare in the Park in New York City. I did a lot of theater. And then, really, when I was really down and out, I was ready to quit. And I was at the law firm, and my father's like, why don't you come back home and be a lawyer? I was like, because I'm not that smart in that kind of way.
Just
So
remember, 65% of the pie. That's not good in school.
65%. I thought it was 80. That's when I knew I had the problem. So my friend, I would always get kids, other actors, jobs at this law firm. And there was one gal, and she kind of bugged me, and I was like, oh, I don't want to get her a job. She's so annoying. And then I was like, who am I? I'm annoying. So I helped her get this job, and she came in and said, there's an audition for an improv comedy group. You ought to audition. Now, if I had been mean and shut her out and didn't help her get the job, I never would have gone to this audition. And I get in this little improv. At the time, it was very popular on 65th Street and First Avenue in New York City. There used to be lines around the block, making $10 every Saturday night. But this director said to me, you ought to do a one-person show. And I was like, all right. So I wrote all these characters that I would love to be cast in, but no one was casting me. And we put it out in New York, and a reviewer came, and I got a good review. And then from that, I had the courage to go to LA, put it on myself with my $5,000 I'd saved to my name. And Seinfeld came and SNL came. So
Wow.
then things took off.
Well, that's unbelievable. And you know where it started? It started with encouragement, right?
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
you can't let somebody else or yourself get in the way of encouraging other people, because encouragement is, a lot of people don't realize how important that is.
Absolutely. I remember when my dad was dying, and there's five of us. There was a little baby monitor in his. We had to sleep downstairs. We couldn't get up the stairs in his room, and he had to get dialysis. And he was like, when he was a lawyer, he's like, I will never get dialysis. It's the worst. Well, of course he did, because you have hope for life. Well, I remember when we called the doctor. And we said we think it's over, and I don't think we can't take him to dialysis anymore. He's so sick. Anyway, the doctor went, and we heard him on the baby monitor say, Bill, you don't have to do this anymore if you don't want. And my father said, well, I understand, Doc, but you got to have hope.
Wow.
And I think what happens with people in my field is they lose hope, because you'll have a job, you'll be on top of the world, and it ends. Not only are you on top of the world, everyone's like, oh, you're in Men in Black.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Can I have your autograph? So then you have a down period, and you're like, I don't think I am what those people thought. I don't think that, but God thinks you are. So
Correct.
you just have to keep saying, God loves me. God believes in me. Something else will come along, but I've got to stay up, because it's not going to do me any good getting down on myself.
Yeah, how do you stay up? I know it's your family and it's your storytelling and it's probably a lot of the relationships you've had, but what keeps your fire? Because to be honest, I've met very few. I haven't said this on any of my shows. I've met very few people that have the fire and passion for life like myself, like you do, and I just really want to thank you for that, because that even encourages me just being around you.
Well, I feel it's a gift, but I will tell you, it takes practice, as you know. when I was in LA and I was only there for 2 years, and believe me, it wasn't me at all. People are like, "You're not from here, are you?" Like I wore a bathing cap in the pool, and these cool guys were like, "Who's the weirdo with the bait?" I'm like, "I'm trying not to wreck my red hair." It wasn't attractive. And then one time they're like, "Can we ask you a question?" I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "You the one blasting Cher?" I'm like, "No." That'd be cool. But anyway, so in LA, I was very down at one point. And I was like to my mother, I said, "I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know what I'm doing." And she's like, "Siobhan, don't be thinking about yourself so much. Get out there and volunteer. And you know what? Don't be looking in the mirror too much at yourself. Be other directed because a lot of people have it worse than you." So I then went and volunteered at this place called the Teen Canteen where runaways would come.
Wow.
But I was always taught that, and I tell my kids that now too. Like my youngest daughter just started a job in New York City, and it's rough, and she's, the first couple nights she's crying, and I said, "Okay, Sinead," like I was like channeling my mother, and as a mother, you're like feeling like this is kind of mean, but I'm going to say what I think, and I said,
Yep.
"Do you have your health? Are you a hostage in Israel? Are you handicapped and unable to work like people that have their minds but sit in a chair and can't do anything?" I said, take start looking at the cup half full, not half empty, because it's a waste of time.
For sure. And you're right. When I was in the eighth grade, I was struggling in school like you. I was similar to you. Like
Yeah.
my grandmother, she's 104. She'll be 105 this year. Yesterday, she's on the phone with me, yelling at me. And what's she yelling at me? "You were a horrible kid," she said. Like, she said, "You were just the worst." I go, "At least I was good at something." She goes, "You were really good at being horrible." I go, "All right, great." So I
Let
was,
me tell you, I remember sending my SAT scores. In those days, you could send two SAT scores to two colleges for free. And I thought, William and Mary sounds like a good place, and Virginia sounds good. I've never been
yeah,
there. I like that name. And they sent back that 2% of the people with my scores would get in. And they had to be athletes because
yeah.
my scores were like, I basically got what you get to write your name.
Yeah, I'm with you. But it was going back to your daughter, like it was this principal had the presence of mind to send me for detention to help kids with Down syndrome. And when I went for detention, it was those kids that taught me it's not about your test scores. It's not about like what you're doing. It's about who you are and the spirit you have. And are you going to be that person that is others focused, like you're teaching your kids and like you learned through your mother?
I absolutely agree. And that principle was brilliant because,
Brilliant.
kids with Down syndrome, they're little angels and gifts from God. And talk about good. They have such good attitudes. They're such beautiful people. But I'll tell you something else that comes to mind. I was in LA. I was teaching English as a second language. At the time, Reagan, this is how old I am, gave, paid people to take English as a second language. So I had kids. They weren't kids. They were 18 to 25 from South America. I had kids from Venezuela, whatever. I was 28. They're like, "Teacher, you have a boyfriend?" I was like, "No." They thought I was, a disaster. But one time I got down to the end for the new Carol Burnett show, and I wasn't going to be able to go, and I wasn't going to be able to teach the next day. I was going to have to go to this final callback. And I think I was gloating actually. I was like, "Guys, I'm not going to be able to be here tomorrow because I am down to the end of the Carol Burnett show." And Stella, I'll never forget it, she's from Venezuela. She raised her hand. She said, "Teacher, who is Carol Burnett?" And I thought, when it's all over, no one cares who you worked with. It's more about, your relationships and being kind and loving and charitable. And so, if you get caught up in the ego of the entertainment business, you're sunk.
Yeah, and that's why I want to talk about this film
Yeah.
because that's what struck me. That's what it's all about. This isn't about the entertainment industry. This is about two people, just broken down in the worldly sense on their luck, just figuring out life, asking those tough questions. Do I have purpose? Do I have meaning? And they
That's
found out through them really not having the answer, they found out the answer together. Talk about this beautiful film you did with your family, Shelter and Solitude, because I want everybody to watch it because it's going to teach us how to be human.
Thank you so much. Okay, so as my third daughter was going off to college, I thought, what in God's name am I going to do with myself? Because as an actress, you work, 4 months, maybe if you're lucky, 6 months. The rest of the time, you're not. So I thought, well, I've been in enough movies that I'm going to try my hand at writing. Really knew nothing about it other than just write. So I wrote my first film, Rushed, which came out in 2021. Robert Patrick from the Terminator's in it, and it did really well. It's about fraternity hazing, but it's about a Catholic family and how a Catholic mom handles when her son has an issue in a fraternity without giving it away. That movie, we were editing it with an editor from France. I was in France. I come home, COVID hits. I'm supposed to go to the sound edit in Denmark, and I can't go. Anyway, long and short of it is, we do the sound edit but remotely, and now it's the end of April 2021. The film is finished, and it sells, and it's going to come out that September. I'm now feeling like I'm exhausted. I need to take a break, and it's 2 weeks after that I said I'm exhausted. I'm going to take a break, and I'm in bed, and I wake up, and this idea comes to me that what if there's a death row prisoner with 10 days left to live, and a washed up country singer guards him, like juxtaposition of two people that never should be together. He's really the better person, the more of a hero, more of a quality person. She's very rough around the edges, but she's going to bring him faith. What if that happens? And then I thought, well, we need a warden, and Robert Patrick, who was in my last movie, is an unbelievable guy. So cut to, I write the film in about 3 weeks. Now, where did the idea come from? First of all, I think it was definitely the Holy Spirit, but my father growing up, he always wanted me to be a country singer. And I really didn't have the voice for it. Then he was a lawyer, and he defended pretty hardcore criminals. And when we were kids, we used to go after mass on Sunday. There's 5 of us with my parents, to my cousins in Pompey, New York. And we passed the Jamesville Penitentiary. And my dad would, and I was fascinated. I was like, well, what are those guys, your prisoners like, your clients? And do they have a relationship with the prison guard? So I think that was always kind of like part of me. And anyway, this idea comes to me. And literally, I feel like it kind of wrote itself. It just came out. And
you did it in 16 days. It would have to be. That's unbelievable.
We filmed it that fall in 16 days.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. So, because honestly, that's the budget we had. But also, our cinematographer, like the cinematographer won Best Cinematography at the Boston Film Festival. I won Best Actress. People think it like the budget, like it was, we made it in 3 months.
Yeah.
Then the crazy part was, it comes time to sell it. And I knew the deal from Rushed. I'm like, this is the worst part of the whole thing. Like, you're in the fetal position. You're like, I cannot believe. And I thought, cares about what anybody thinks? I'm going to throw it out there to everybody. And my sister Sheila was in Italy at St. Philomena's Shrine on St. Philomena's birthday in August. And I get a call from AMC that they love it, and they want to distribute it. And I'm like, you would have thought somebody was shot in the house. I was like, wow. I'm
That's
like,
unbelievable.
yeah. And then Regal picked it up. Yeah. So it came out in October, and now it's on Amazon and Apple and streaming. So yeah.
Everybody's got to watch it, and I'm just saying this because it's important for people to understand that broken people can be the people to lead us towards faith, to lead us towards hope, to lead us towards love. We need to stop being so segregated and separated from people. And that's what I saw and I got from it.
Definitely. The 3 characters. So Peter Macon, who plays the guy on death row. Me, I'm a woman who has never married. She's kind of a cougar wannabe, to be honest, but no one will have her.
Is that what you were? Are you still that?
No,
don't answer the question. Your husband's not going to be happy.
Yeah, listen. No, keep it on the down low. I'm only kidding. So then I owned a bar. I own a bar, and I'm the only show in town, in a tiny town with 4 corners. So at face value, people would judge me. They'd be like, "Ew, she's kind of sleazy," or "She wants to be sleazy, but don't have her." She drinks too much. But when everything shuts down, and she's like, "What can I do with my life that's important?" There's someone suffering, and she becomes really more Christ-like than people that are polished. And she's rough around the edges, but she's got Christ's message. She totally gets it. She's going to make this guy every day, this guy's life better till the day he dies. She's going to bring him scripture, even if he wants nothing to do with it. And she'll admit, like, she's like, no, I'm really not good at scripture either. I mean, we're Catholic and mainly born agains read that. You know, she's like, she's admits that she's not perfect or she's not, you know, pious anyway. So I think the reason, and Robert Patrick's character, who plays the warden, he is divorced. He's angry because his wife took the kids. So they're three broken people. But I think that's what people relate to when they see it, because a lot of times when you see a faith-based movie, and I'm not knocking them, I'm just saying the people are so perfect. You're like, how the heck am I going to be like that? So I
Correct.
think that's where people are, and I'll say this too, Justin, it's so important that people support the movie, because as Pope John Paul II said, the culture, it starts with the arts, you know? I
No,
mean,
I agree with that totally. And then not only that, why wouldn't you support it? It has a 98% Rotten Tomatoes, right? Like
exactly.
I mean, it's not like you're supporting something that's not
Or some
good. Yeah. And I think you're onto something, you know. I think, you know, especially, you know, in any Christian or Catholic world, what we want to do is we want to make everybody think that we have everything all together. And
right.
then they're surprised when they see our family and our brokenness and our struggle. My point, whenever I hang out with a bishop or a leader, I always tell them all the bad things I've done, not even in my
Exactly.
past, because I want to let them know, look, this is who you're dealing with. And that's
Exactly. Mary
sometimes the
Magdalene.
greatest way you can encourage somebody. The greatest way you can encourage somebody is say, guess what? God loves me as I am, where I'm at right now.
Yes. That's right. That's right. And that's why I always, as a kid, I always loved Mary Magdalene, because and that Christ loved her so much. But with the kids
Unbelievable.
and your young people that I met from your group, they're so unbelievable. And I think the hard thing for kids in their 20s is they think that the 20s are supposed to be the best time of their life, and a lot of times
The
it's
toughest time.
the hardest time.
Yes.
I've had so many kids call me that go off to college and say it doesn't work out for them. So they come back and they're like so down and out. And I say, listen, no one's parents are encouraging them to go into the arts, because they're like, do that on the side. My parents were
Correct.
like, Sean, do you think you could do dinner theater at night? What? And I'm like, no, I want to do this. But I say, if you have a passion, follow the passion, but you got to back it up with prayer. You got to back it up with volunteering, and you got to work your rear end off.
Yeah, and what do you think for this film, Shelter and Solitude? For Shelter and Solitude, what do you think has been the greatest reaction, like that you've been touched by and impact? Like when people watch it and they share about it, what spoke to you when people share? Because I know with the projects I've done, it's great. You're like, wow, I never realized that.
It's so humbling. I got a letter from someone who said, I have to tell you, I watched your movie twice because I needed to go back and see. There's some symbols in it, but to get all the messages. Because one thing about both of my films, Rushed and Shelter and Solitude, is that, as I said, humor was so valued in my family. In both my films, terrible things happen to funny people. And I think
That,
that's
that's an interesting. That's an interesting paradox. I like that.
and because I think it's particularly moving when someone who's supposed to be funny is knocked off their feet. And how do they get back up? And one of the places I learned that was from Marty, your friend, and my brother-in-law. My husband's one of, and my nephew um passed away when he was 29. And I went to my sister-in-law's house the morning of the funeral, and my other sister-in-law was brushing her hair out. And I said, how are you going to do this? And she said, well, I figured if the Blessed Mother could see your son on the cross, then I can do this. And it was through her faith and her humor, because they're very funny people, as you know.
Yeah, Marty's hilarious. I
That's
could spend like 10 hours with the guy and not get bored.
Yeah. So this is the thing. Humor is such a gift. So, but I think that going back to your question of what people have impacted people from shelter and solitude is that no matter what your economic level is or what your class level is, or it's the basics of being charitable to one another when times are not, talk about tough, when you have 10 days left to live. Like,
Um,
peel away everything, peel away the onion and just get to the basics.
Yeah, and that's where faith helps us. You know, a lot of people look, I'm fine. If you're gonna tell me you can be the most encouraging person on the planet and you can say we don't need faith to do it, you know, I'm fine. Look, I love everybody. So if you really can show me how to do that without faith, I'm in. Just teach me. But for me, faith is what's influenced me through the toughest times of my life.
Absolutely.
And tell me about your, your Catholic faith and how it's influenced you and your family values and influenced you in storytellings and films. Share a few stories on that. I'd
Well,
love to hear that.
I literally, Justin, just thought of a hilarious story that I probably shouldn't
Oh,
admit.
come on. It better be funny. You just said it's funny, so it better be
When
funny.
I was in LA, that's when I was 28 and 29. And I was like, what is going on? I'd like to get married if someone would like me. My father told me to hide my real personality for 3 weeks if I wanted to meet somebody. So I thought, okay. I would go to church at this big church on Hollywood Boulevard. I'm forgetting the name of it right now. It was anyway, and Sunset Boulevard. And they said we need people to join to be sponsors for our CIA. And I thought that's a good way to meet a guy. I can meet some convert or something. And so I joined. Now the only hook was if you joined, you couldn't go, and it was like in September. You had to meet once a week, and you couldn't go home for Easter because that's when they would, have they would become Catholics. So within that time, I have a girl that was assigned to me, and but within that time, there was a British woman, and she was a nurse, and she was a convert. And she said, when I was in, she was older, she's probably dead as a doornail right now, but she said, when I was a nurse in London and I had patients who were dying, it was the Catholics who were so peaceful, and they were not afraid. And I was like, that's so interesting. Well, the part of the story that I shouldn't tell is 1 week before Easter, my girl said, you know what? I'm fine with what I am. I don't need to become a Catholic. And I was like, oh, I didn't do a very good job. So I got to fly home for Easter.
Oh my goodness. She spent that whole time. She didn't become Catholic.
I didn't do a very good job. But I have taught my kids.
How's it going? It's Justin Fatica, and I can tell you I'm so thankful for your encouraging messages and engagement and joining us for our videos that we hope are bringing you encouragement when you need it most. Now, before you go, I want to tell you about some exciting news. Since I was 19 years old, it's my dream to build facilities for kids. Well, that dream is happening. It's a place where young people and their families can relax, socialize, work out, be encouraged, that they can make a difference in somebody's life every day or have their lives be impacted. That's where we need you. We need you to ask yourself if you'd like to help us to break ground. You can be a part of this mission within less than 1 year. But if we don't have help, we can't do this. Now, I know right now there are a lot of people struggling, but we're just looking for pocket change, a rainy day fund, or to connect us with partners who can help make this dream a reality. We want every single kid and every single family to know they're amazing. And it starts with you. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content so we can keep you updated, so you can keep us going. And together, remember, we are making a lasting impact. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your support, and stay encouraged. And never forget, you were made for an amazing day, and it starts with what lives within you. You're amazing.
To stand up for yourself, stand up for your faith. My oldest daughter is my Bernadette. She's a newscaster on New York One in New York City. My son Peter is 25. He's an actor and a music supervisor. He got me all the country singers for Shelter and Solitude, and we have Justin Biltonen from Three Doors Down.
Yeah, you sang with them, didn't you?
I sang with him. I went out to Nashville. We sang. It was unbelievable. we then had the premiere party out there. And we sang on this rooftop, but we recorded out there. I mean, here I am in a sound booth recording. But anyway, in high school, my oldest daughter went all through Catholic school, kindergarten on. My son wanted to play football, and so he went to the public school at 9th grade. Well, in about 10th grade, he loved avocados and he loved guacamole. And I found he was watching TV, and I found some avocados, and I don't think they were quite still good. So I made him some guacamole, put a little mayonnaise in it, so I kind of covered it up so that I thought it's good enough, right? Well, he started vomiting uncontrollably, and we had to go to the hospital.
Oh.
So I grabbed one of his books, because he was not a student either. He's exactly like me, only a guy and an athlete, and I'm not at all. And I grabbed this book that he was supposed to be reading for school, and now we're in the emergency room, and they're trying to help him, and I'm reading this book, and it's filth. It's disgusting. It is beyond filth, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm done. So I take a couple quotes from the book, and I send it to every person I know and say, are you aware of what your kids are reading? Now, my son at the time was like, Mom, it's going to make me look like a fool. I'm like, I don't care. These people are pervert weirdos, and I'm done. So
Go get him, Siobhan. That's encouraging.
I get like 320 people to sign this paper, and I'm like, go big or go. Now they're like, what the heck? She's gone rogue, and they get the ACLU. I mean, this is now getting bad, and there's going to be. So I'm like, you fight me, I'll fight harder. I bring in TV cameras. I bring in press, and I'm like, okay, I would like to read some of the lines. And they said, oh, at this particular meeting, they said, well, I went against them. At the second meeting, they said, Siobhan, we haven't made a decision yet. And I'm sure you don't want to wait around for the lacrosse team meeting. So we're aware of your issue, because I was following up. So there's no reason for you to stay. So I said, oh, no, I'll stay. I'm interested in lacrosse. I mean, I know nothing about lacrosse.
Yeah.
I said, all these lacrosse parents are there, and they're mad about some coach. I'm like, this is a great opportunity. So they said, okay, we'd like to open up the floor. Anybody from lacrosse? Oh, yes, I'd like to say something. Yes. The people are like, what the heck? I said, oh, if any of you parents are looking for a nice gift for your sons, if they're graduating and your sons like pornography, you should consider this.
Oh,
because
my good. Oh,
these
my
people
good.
are teaching them pornography, and they're like, what? But so anyway, my point is, I taught my kids not to be afraid and to stick up for your faith. And every time you do, God will take care of you. And all of a sudden, maybe I'm sitting there and I get a phone call and I'll get a part in a movie. I'm like, thank you. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. You're right. I always, all the dreams that God's put on my heart, like everything. I'm like, how is this even going to happen? Like, this is never going to happen. But then all of a sudden, through the grace, and mercy, because I'm no perfect guy, everybody knows that. Like, through the grace and through his mercy, like, just things happen, you know. And one of the projects I have coming out, this docuseries, this 6-part series on my basketball team, it all came straight from having faith, just to care for kids, just to be there for them, just to like. Now this series is going to impact millions of people, like you have impacted. In the gym, which I've always wanted to build a gym, it's possible to happen. I think a lot of people who are maybe not we're in like a creative industry, even, in speaking and writing for myself. And it's very difficult because, like you said, there's highs and lows. But what that's also taught us is that we're not in control. And I think our society right now wants to be in control. And with things that have been going on in our society, we have to realize that God's in control. That we have to put our trust in him. And did you know that that they psychologically have studied people of faith, and that those that are able to have God in their life and put control in his hands, they have less anxiety, less depression, less alcoholism, less everything across the board goes down. So I always tell people, like, well, what if it's not real? They say, I go, well, that's as real as you can get with those stats. You can think whatever you want.
And let's face it, you and I both know that God has a hilarious sense of humor. Because when you look
Oh,
back at low times, you want to say, "Hey,
he
what was
made
that?"
you. He made you, right? That's funny.
Right.
He made
Funny
me
looking.
funny looking. No, yeah. That,
Listen. I tell kids, I'm like, I wrote my one person show because well, the director said to me, you should write it. But two was because I wasn't getting cast. And people would say to me, you know what? You are going to work a lot in your 40s. When you're in your early 20s and someone tells you that, you're like, are you kidding me? I'll be a dinosaur by then. Meanwhile, now I'd love to be in my 40s. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you give God the control and then let God give you more control by having confidence. Say, well, you know what? I'll write it myself. I'll put on the show myself, and then people will see, and then they'll cast me. You know what I'm saying?
and the beautiful thing is what you're saying is that trust,
Yeah.
trust, trust,
Yeah.
trust. How much do we need trust right now? I mean, look at people are nervous about everything. They're
Oh,
nervous about the housing market. They're nervous about the job market. They're nervous about youth. Have you been to a public school? Have you been to an inner city public school? You wouldn't believe it. If you're not nervous right now and you don't
oh,
need trust, go to an inner city public school in any city in the country. And
yeah.
it's a challenge, challenge, challenge.
Yeah.
Teachers are nervous. So trusting in God right now can help keep us encouraged. How do you trust in God? Motivate somebody like what's something
Well,
practical you do in your life? What helps you trust in God?
one thing that I was taught when I was young was to practice praying. And I think that if you can't think of anything, you just say, please help me deepen my faith. Please help me deepen my faith. And I think that um, reading the Bible is important because and you can see, look, these people are examples and these stories that all the parables are not complicated. You know what I mean? And I think and you trust by looking at your gifts and looking at the future and taking, being thankful. Like one thing was very helpful for me was when I moved to New York City and we lived next to the Natural History
Not
Museum.
many people say that. That's a good thing.
Well, you know what? Because I would take my kids to the Natural History Museum, like an indoor playground, and let them bomb around. But you see a lot of severely handicapped people. And I mean kids that are like their face to the side with oxygen. And you say, when that kid has a smile on their face, that is a gift. I mean, how is with someone with that many drawbacks in life, how are they happy? And then you say they're God's children and they can inspire. So I find God in other people. And I just say, I hand this over to you. And if I have anxiety or I can't sleep or something like that, and I just get it down to the basics. And I just breathe in and say Jesus and breathe out and say Jesus and let him come to me and be present.
Yeah, and you say people have been like, and for me, I'm similar to you in that way. Like, really, people have inspired me to have faith. Like, I have this kid. He's on my basketball team. He's 12 years old, but he prays. He prays like he's an 80-year-old man, like ready to, pass away or something. He's got all his life to him. He's just like, Heavenly Father, help my coach and be there for him and protect my family. And that just speaks to me when I see these kids with that kind of faith.
It's
Who,
amazing.
who has spoken to you? Give me one or two people. You're like, man, let me tell you something. This person has inspired my faith like no tomorrow.
Okay, well, speaking of kids, so I do this Bible camp in Casanova every
Oh,
summer.
yeah, you were telling me about that. That's hilarious.
There's a little girl, Katerina, and she comes from Massachusetts because her mom grew up there, but she only comes to the Bible camp. And we do like skits and things like that. And I one day would do like saints. So maybe we do Saint Teresa Little Flower. I'd have each kid be a saint, whoever feels comfortable acting out. And so at the end of the camp one day, I said, and so saints are God's friends. And what does anybody have anything to say about the saints? And she raised her hand. She goes, it isn't easy to be a saint. It's hard. You have to work at it. So that I was like learning from a child. and then also learning from the elderly. Like my mom died 2 months short of 97, and she was completely with it.
Wow.
And loneliness and boredom, because you don't have enough to do anymore in life, then you basically your faith is what lets you stay on track and know that God is going to take care of you and there's something better coming. And
Yep.
it's and the words of the little girl, it's not easy, it's hard.
Yeah, and they did a Harvard Business Review on that, and they said who survived the concentration camps, and the review was the people that survived weren't the dreamers. You know what I mean? Like people like us, right?
Yeah,
The people that survived were the practical people, right? That
really.
said, we only got one day to live. If we have one day to live, how are we gonna do this? And they
Right.
said the other people. Now this is us. This gives us a chance. They said the people that survived were people who improvised, like that could like figure out how to improvise. Like, oh, enjoy this, and then we'll see. Maybe we only
Yeah,
get
yeah,
a little
yes,
bit of open. And then they
exactly.
said the other people that survived are people who had purpose. They had a why. Like, why are we here? Oh, I'm here today just to encourage or help the person who's sick next to me. And they made
Yes,
a purpose. And I can tell you that was an interesting review that I read. And it just gave me an understanding that we need to live one day at a time, Siobhan. And if you don't know what I'm talking to Siobhan, who has produced, wrote, been on films, Saturday Night Live. You're talking about your faith, you know, to keep your faith through all that. Like, you don't know this, but I was a little bit in your industry where Oprah's company wanted me to do this show, and they
right.
asked me to do things like
Oh
you
yeah.
wouldn't believe. Like, and I was like, holy cow. So I bet you a lot of people want to know, with all your history and all the great stuff you've done, how have you been able to keep your faith and your conviction despite being asked to probably do things you probably shouldn't do?
Because I knew that my faith in God was more important than anything, any dollar or any popularity. And I had to, and I think that when you have that, so say if someone wants you to do something, which has happened to me a lot, on a show, and you're like, "Whoa, I'm not doing that," then I don't think it comes across as offensive. Like like I was on a show and I called the producer in to say, "Hey, listen, I'm not doing that." Like, see, I love movies because when you get the script as an actress, you're like, your part from beginning to end. When you're on a TV show, they could change it up. So I was on a TV show and everything was great. And I was like, this is awesome. It's like a regular job. This is fantastic. And then this is why God has a really good sense of humor. I get the script and my character's supposed to start having an affair. And guess where the affair starts? In mass. I'm supposed to lean down and get a missile, and this guy to like me. I'm like, you cannot believe this. It's unbelievable. And so, but this happens to me a lot, where I think that God is like hilariously thinking this is funny. So anyway, I said, I can't do this. So I have to talk to the producer. So, that's like a kid asking the principal to come to their desk. So he said, what's the deal? I said, okay, I can't do this part this way anymore. And I think I have to leave the show. And he's like, what? And I said, I have 3 kids. And one by one, people are like, don't you tell your kids you're an actress? Then I go, no, that's what you tell your kids, but I'm not doing that. I've set an example. But I had other people saying to me on the immediate show, I'm so glad that you did that. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. So, but no one ever, well, maybe behind my back they did, but I don't think anybody ever got really angry because it was coming from a faith place of truth. Like, look at, I can't do that because of my religion. The way I would respect anybody else's religion, faith, or beliefs.
Yeah, I lost the show because I wouldn't get in the hot tub with a bunch of girls I was supposed to help. You know what I mean? Like they're like, so I lost the show because of that. Have you ever lost shows
Yes, yes. I got out
because
to
of
LA.
your faith?
Yes. I went out to LA for a final callback to sign something. And there was a nudity. First of all,
It's
when we went
always,
to,
what's this with? It's always the nude stuff they want to get us to do. I mean, come
by
on,
the
what's
way,
happening?
who in God's name wants to see me nude? Nobody. Anyway,
Yeah, I know that.
I
I was just talking to my barber about that today.
know. So
We're a
here
bunch of hairy Italians. What do you want to do that for?
like like you're basically in like you're like someone who parachuted in and everybody knows everybody and you're like, hi, I'm here for the final comic. And they're like, oh, we may be working with you for the next couple of years. And you're like, oh, hi, what's your name? Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I don't want to sign that part. They're like, what? Do you understand? You could be making this. Like, yeah. See, thanks for flying me out. I'm out. You know what I mean?
And how many times do you think it happened? Once or twice, or 5 to 10?
Well, I've learned to now. Um,
Know which ones?
well, when I get the script and I'm gonna get into it, I'm like, and my manager will know. I'm like, yeah, I didn't think you were like that, but they have to send it to you. But I recently did a film where I got there, and this was hysterical because my son came with me just to say hello, and he couldn't believe this. The writer said, "Oh, by the way, and here I'm gonna change this up, and by the way, we're gonna have you say something so derogatory about the Catholic Church." And I go, "Oh, I'm not gonna say that." Like, I go, "You're gonna have to come up with something else." You know what I mean? But because we're such fair game, the Catholics. This is why I wanted to write Shelter and Solitude and Rushed. I'm committed to writing work that makes the Catholics. We can be funny, we can be this, we can be that, but we need to respect it. I've written a play right now called Mother's Last Day, and Patty Heaton from Everybody Loves
Yep,
Raymond,
yep.
she's a big Catholic. Margaret Colin, another big Catholic. We just did a big reading in New York City. We're trying to, the next step is hopefully to get it on Broadway, but it's about my mother's last day
Wow.
on her life. She's in bed, and my three Irish sisters and me and my aunt and my niece running around bumping into each other, fighting, getting along, screaming like, give her the morphine, don't give her the morphine, let's say the rosary. Oh no, no. And it's hilarious, but it's respectful.
Yeah, for sure. Well, why do you think, and this is important for me because me being like always people picture me as an evangelical. They never really kind of this guy's Catholic. Like, and
Right.
it's like when you say you're Catholic, all of a sudden it like has all these different things that just start happening to people. What is that about? It's in the secular world, it's even in the, Christian faith world. I'm just here to encourage others and hope they can have faith in God. It's that simple. What are you making such a big deal about it? Why do
Right.
you think as Catholics they make such a big what's your take on
Well, I remember years ago after 9/11,
it?
my husband was, thank God, made it out of the towers, but lost so many friends. And Congressman Peter King organized a bunch of Catholics to get together and talk. And one thing he mentioned was, as Catholics, sometimes we're a little proud and we don't shout it out. We're not evangelical. We're not evangelizing enough, and that we should be doing what you're doing. And because I think because it's sort of an intellectual religion and it's sophisticated, but
Oh, it's the depth, length, the breadth of the Catholic Church is ridiculous.
right. So we have to get to the people like you're doing, and like I'm trying to do with my movies, and get the message out in a way that is not so um, highbrow that we're not reaching all the people.
Yeah, yeah, and as Catholics, I actually, to be honest, I mean, from my perspective, I think Catholics do a better job at that than from my perspective. Like even this film that I have coming out, like I love it because it's like faith. They know I'm a faith guy,
Right.
but that's not like what it's about. It's about love. It's about peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, compassion. It's like
Right.
Mother Teresa.
Right.
The way she loved, like it was about being present. It was
Yes.
about serving. It wasn't about like, hey, I'm bringing my faith of Jesus Christ. It's about me doing that. And
Right.
I think that's something we do well as Catholics.
Yes, I do. I do too. And I think we now need to expand further into the arts, and because the media is the way, these kids are so
Yeah, and that's why people have to share every person watching this, I'm going to challenge them. And I'm going to put the trailer on. I'll tell my producer to put the trailer on the end so they can at least see it on
awesome.
this show and then they can watch it.
Yes, they can also watch the trailer because sometimes the trailer, I've done a lot of podcasts, doesn't transfer visually correctly. It'll be a little blurry, which it's not like that at all. They can always go to AMC or Regal YouTube channels. And it's very important when they watch it as well, on Amazon or whatever, if they can write a review, because you can always write a review. And those, believe it or not, really help. People will say, "Oh, I watched your film because I some random person wrote this review." So yeah, and then tell people, because the more we spread the word and get the word out about the film, then we can do another one.
No, that's great. And I appreciate honesty. We have three virtues we live by in our life. One is authenticity. And like, I just appreciate your authenticity, and I appreciate your courage with your kids, with your family. I love it's funny, but it's humorous, but on the other end, it's beautiful in the public school where you did to stand up, at the lacrosse meeting, and that touched my
Yeah.
heart. And that gives me and a lot of other people the courage, but also your obedience. And I think obedience is a word that people don't like, but you really are obedient to your Catholic faith. You want to honor, and obedience isn't about like do what's right, do what. It's more I want to honor people that should be dignified, and that's how I look at obedience. Hey, I
Yes.
want to honor this person. I want to honor this church, and we have
Right.
a lot of people fighting within, without, and we need to honor people. One of my favorite things to do is like some of my players. They come from deep Muslim roots. Let me tell you something. I'm on the same page. They don't want their kids having sex before marriage. They don't want their kids living with each other. And you know
Right.
what I always tell? I always tell their parents, they're coming all the garbage. I said, I want to say, I want to honor you. I just look up to you.
Yes.
I just, in so many ways. We need to
Yeah.
start honoring people that might even have differences than
Right.
ours, and really seeing the dignity. And that's what the saints did. If you research the saints, that's what a lot of them died for.
Oh, absolutely. And we're all God's children. It's just, this division is ridiculous, and it's just gone too far. And we got to get to the kids, and and also protect the kids. Like when garbage comes into the school, say this is what are we here for? But yeah, no, I really respect the work that you're doing, and I appreciate you supporting Shelter and Solitude. And once you see Shelter and Solitude, see Rushed, because it's
Okay, I
different.
haven't seen that one yet, so I have to
Oh, yeah.
check it out.
It's great for kids in high school going into college, because it's really a warning as well.
I haven't done this for all our guests, but I'd love it if you could just close with sharing, like, what's the greatest challenge you ever faced? What helped you through it? And what are you most thankful for? Just answer those three questions. I can help you with that. So just share what's one of the, I'm sure you've had many challenges, but really on your heart, it was just so hard. It was so tough for you in your life. What was the greatest challenge you ever faced?
One of my kids really struggled at one point, and we stuck by and prayed, and she's doing unbelievably. And but I think when your child suffers, you suffer, and you can't think of anything else but that kid. And it pulled, it sometimes distracts from the other kids, but it was and that my that child is probably the most faithful of all of the kids,
Well,
because I think, when you hit rock bottom, it brings highs, and it
yep.
brings and also you appreciate that high, because you think, at least I'm not there anymore.
Yep. No, for sure. And what
And
helped you through it? Like, what was really like, what helped you? And
prayer,
when,
definitely prayer, and then sharing about the faith, and just handing it over to God, handing it right over to God, because otherwise it just tear you apart.
And what are you most that let's say it's the last day you're on this earth, and
Uh-oh.
you're on the podcast with me. You're done. It's live every day as if it's your last, Siobhan. This is the last day you got. What are you most thankful for in life? What would you want everybody to know? This is what I'm so thankful for.
I am just, oh, listen, being given the gift of my faith from the time I was young with my parents. Just people, some people don't are I have parents that don't have any faith, and they don't share any faith. I feel that that was the greatest gift from the day I was born, to be for my parents to instill that faith. And also, I'm going to do a B. I think that Spreading the word through music is unbelievable. Like sometimes I wake up in the morning, I'm like, cry. It's in the movie. Christ be my God. And by the way, I never know the lyrics to songs. So after the movie, people are like, that was so great when you sang Christ be my light and you sang it wrong. I'm like, I did? I didn't, I didn't even know it was wrong. Because that's how much I don't listen. I'll be like,
I do the same stuff.
Christ be my God, shine on my light. And be like, my sister's like,
I thought you weren't a singer.
fake it till you make it.
You're living your dad's dream. No, this is so much fun, and I just want you to know, like, I will make sure that I love helping others. You know, like anything I love.
So
You know,
much.
I love cheering people on, and I'm gonna cheer you on until I can't cheer anymore because
I
that's what life's
appreciate it.
about.
I never do anything for you, same. You know what I mean? Like spread the good is all I gotta say.
Yeah, no, for sure. But thank you so much. And you are
Thank you.
somebody, you are unique. You really are. And not just because you're funny and you have but you're unique where you stand your ground. And I think
Well,
people need to stand their ground more than ever. I can like my big thing is the most encouraging people I ever meet in my life are people that disagree with me on everything, but they still want to spend time with me.
yes, exactly.
Like
Exactly.
people that are all about the nudie movies. I don't want to go be nudie with them, but they should, like, hopefully they still want to spend time with me, even though I disagree 100% with what they're doing. I
Exactly.
think those are the kinds of people. And you know what? You know who you are? I know this. You're that kind of person.
I
You're that
appreciate
kind
that,
of person.
Justin, and I'm really commend you for all you do. And when I met those group of kids in Casanova 2 summers ago, I was like, wow, you guys, whatever you're doing, it's unbelievable.
Well, one of them wants to do a film eventually, so I want you to help him out with it if you could.
Absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
right. I'll make sure when he's ready, when he has it, you can critique it and you can beat it
Definitely.
up and you can bust it up. But no,
Definitely.
but I love Siobhan. I love you so much. And hey,
Oh,
we got to go out to
tell everybody,
dinner.
sorry, I was going to say, tell everybody to follow on Instagram at Siobhan Fallon Hogan or at Shelter in Solitude.
Make sure, and I'll make sure the producers put that in. Make sure you guys put that in, so everybody can just click on it and
Awesome.
make it easy for you. And we'll make sure you can share this with everybody
That's
and
great.
let them know and keep it going. Keep it going. But you got to meet my wife and I want to meet your husband because I
Awesome.
bet you'll be shocked because my wife is like, she's the most beautiful person because she's totally opposite of me. But
Yes.
opposites attract, like Paula Abdul said,
It's true. My parents
back in
they
the
used to
day.
say my parents' marriage was the Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde because my
Yeah.
mother was hilarious but quiet and loved her kids, and she was like not that social, and she was the best person. And my father was like would go to 5 breakfast places before he came home. All right. Well, thanks, Justin, for having me. I really
All right.
appreciate it.
Love you so much.
All right. God bless.
God bless you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Encouragement Conquers All podcast with Justin Fatica. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this episode with someone who needs a little encouragement. For more uplifting content, follow us on our social media pages. See you in the next episode.